All right, so we're starting again. Okay, so this is Hilchos Yesodei Torah perek yud. Should we start with halacha? Let's start with halacha dalid 1 and 2, just to summarize. So basically, he was saying if a Navi predicts something bad's going to happen, then that could be retracted, or it could not come true because people could do tshuva, right? But if he promises something good, then that has to happen unless it is on a condition. The condition is not met. And therefore, we only test the Navi with prophecies for good. Okay. Now, we had a bunch of complicated questions yesterday about like what kind of nevuah will the Navi get to test him. And we basically said, we inferred from here that it sounds like he won't get a nevuah for bad in order to test him because that wouldn't accomplish the test. And then we had obvious question of, well, what if a guy says, hey, I'm a new Navi and here's nevuah for bad.
Right. And
he doesn't offer a nevuah to test himself.
Right.
So then what do we make of that guy? Because it sounds like he'd be a false Navi because
right.
he's.
So I think we just said like just a liar, or like we could feel very uncertain.
Yeah, we feel uncertain and assume that he might be a false Navi, but he wouldn't have the din of Navi Sheker. We wouldn't kill him.
Right.
Because he's not actually claiming to have a nevuah that's not going to be true. If his nevuah didn't come true, that wouldn't prove anything because it's the nevuah for bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
It can be changed.
Right.
Yeah.
Then we had my question, which is, how can you have this principle at all when you say that if you make a nevuah for the good, then it has to come true? Because my understanding of hashgacha is that you need to be on the level in order to receive the promise, unless there's like a shavua or a brit with it. And that's why Abraham asked, when God promised him to give his descendants the land, he said, Abraham said, how do I know? And Abraham was worried that maybe they're not going to be on the level to receive it, you know? So, and we didn't have an answer from that, but if we get there today, Rambam has an answer in the Akdama to the פירוש המשניות. So there is an answer, and it's a simple answer. But yeah.
I did speculate that maybe it's like a shepherd from the Navi.
Oh yes, you did speculate that, and that was good speculation. But we just didn't know if that would play out in all the cases because it sounds like.
Wait, what if he's not on the level? What if he stops being on the level?
Yeah. Okay. Back to the question. How to push the doctor? Yeah.
Can you just repeat the question one more time?
My question, or his? Yeah, my question is my understanding of the way hashgacha works in general, especially according to the Rambam, but in general, according to all the Rishonim, according to the Rambam, is that you can only get hashgacha if you're on the level to receive it. So let's say, the classic example is Yaakov Avinu was told by Hashem not to fear, and then when he was meeting Esau, he was worried that he's going to get killed. So doesn't that show a lack of emunah on Yaakov's part? The answer is no, is that when God promises something, the promise is contingent on you being on the level to receive that hashgacha. So Yaakov was worried maybe his Chataim diminished him and he's no longer deserving of God's protection.
Right.
So that's my understanding of hashgacha in general. So based on that, Rambam is telling us if God says, I'll protect you, Yaakov, sounds like that has to come true. You know?
Right.
And that's like and the Rambam is saying that as an absolute. So how can that be?
Well, is it possible just assuming that like there's an assumption that guy's on the level, meaning like,
but that seems like a pretty bad assumption given the track record of humanity and people.
Like if Yaakov could.
Yeah, Yaakov's worried about it.
Right, and he still got the nevuah, but then was still worried about it.
Right. Yeah. Right.
I see.
Yeah. Okay, so that's where we ended up yesterday, and then I think we're at Dalid 3, right? Oh, and then I want to make an editorial point after Dalid 3. We should really have read this one yesterday. Hu Yirmiyahu Omer b'tshuvata l'Hananiah ben Azor. We all know who that is? No, we don't. What's that? So I didn't know who this was either. So it was a person who was claiming to be a Navi, but who was a false Navi. And you got to remember, at the time of Yirmiyahu, what was the state of Nevi'im?
They were all saying like the Mishnah is going to stand forever, everything's great, and Yirmiyahu was saying the Mishnah is going to be true.
Right, he was the only one.
So were they all?
They were all false prophets. Yeah. So the scenario was Yirmiyahu was prophesying for bad, Hananiah was prophesying for good. Amar lo Yirmiyahu, so Yirmiyahu said to him, Hananiah, Im lo yamdu devarai, if my words don't come true, Im b'zeh raya she'ani navi sheker. This is not a proof that I'm a false prophet. About Im lo yamdu devaracha, if your words don't come true, yivada she'ata navi sheker, then it's known that you're a false prophet. As it is stated, listen to this matter, please, or now. Hanavi asher yinavi b'shalom, the prophet who prophesies for peace. V'vo davar hanavi yivada hanavi asher shalacho Hashem be'emes. Then it will be known. when the word of the Navi comes true, it will be known that that is a Navi that Hashem sent him in truth, meaning that you can only verify it through a prophecy for good, not through bad. Yeah. Okay. Pause, editorial comment, which we should have talked about yesterday. And I only didn't talk about it because I talked about it in my shiur about what do you do with parts of the Torah that seem outdated. The question we didn't address, we covered that the Navi can temporarily suspend any mitzvah in the Torah and temporarily issue any command. But the question is why? And it's not really a question on the wrong, but I felt it's important to address because the whole setup we had yesterday is the perfection of the Torah, and this is related to that.
Wait, the question is,
Why does God give the, I mean, it's a basic question. Why does God give the Navi the right to modify Torah? Or if you want to put it in a different, frame the question in a different way, all the mitzvahs of the Torah have reasons, and the reasons are either for, to teach you ideas, to instill mitos, or to effectuate like social change or your justice in society. So like, what's the tam hamitzvah of the Navi being able to temporarily suspend any halacha but avodah zarah? It's not a question on the wrong, it's just a question on tam mitzvahs. Or on, yeah.
Maybe so he can fulfill some specific objective.
Okay, so yeah, so can we elaborate on that? Yeah.
Like,
I was going to come up with another question, but
I
go
was
ahead.
thinking like on her.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It could be related to, I think Rambam, maybe more says that like not every mitzvah is going to be best for every individual at every time.
Right.
History.
Yeah.
Because you have to have a system, and systems are just universal laws.
Right.
They won't necessarily hit every particular instance.
Right.
So if you have a Navi that can temporarily suspend things, then you can make sure that, as not, I mean, I don't know if you get every situation, but you get more situations.
Right. So that's the idea I was thinking, and that's the idea I talked about in that shiur, which is, I mean, it's in line with what you're saying, but basically is that despite everything we said yesterday about the Torah being perfect, the Torah is only as perfect as any system can be. And systems, especially eternal unchanging systems, if you're updating the system every once in a while, then it can be more perfect, but the Torah is unchanging, as we talked about the last couple of days. So the problem, which is not a fault in Torah, but the problem is that what happens when a law of Torah leads to something that is bad or precludes something that's good. So if you didn't have a Navi, you'd be stuck, but the Navi can temporarily tweak things to make them in line with what's good for this particular scenario, like Eliyahu and Har Carmel, and so that's not a deficiency in Torah. That's every system has this, and this is all from the Rambam, by the way. Explain it for the Navi, but the Rambam compares it to miracles. We say the laws of nature are perfect, but it would be really bad if Klal Yisrael were trapped at Yam Suf and the Egyptians killed them all. We agree that that's bad. So, I mean, when I say we, I'm assuming none of us is like Amalek, but for us, it'd be bad. And so a miracle is a temporary suspension of the laws of nature. God will never suspend nature or change nature permanently, according to the Rambam, but it's a temporary suspension to allow for particular good when the laws themselves wouldn't have allowed that. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess, how is it different than the Sanhedrin power?
So that, I think the only difference is how right they can be. The Sanhedrin could theoretically be wrong about this, like they're doing it based on human knowledge, whereas the Navi is doing it based on Nebuah.
Okay, but in terms of their ability to do.
Yeah, when I was reading the Rambams in that shiur, then I think did I read them? I'm gonna mix up for the one I did with Lamdah and the one I did here. I think we read them. I don't know if we is just me or all of you. That I think he uses the exact same lashon.
Okay.
So I think the power is the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why do you need? Oh. Yeah.
So the Sanhedrin would be the lesser version of the Navi. The Navi is going to be able to do it on divine authority and without any sort of like Sanhedrin is going to have to like discuss it and deliberate and vote and
So why have Sanhedrin at all? If you can, I mean, at least in this area, why this power Sanhedrin?
I mean, I can't say why do it, but I can see it's good. Like
what? So I guess what's
I mean, it sounds like you're asking on the redundancy.
Yeah, like what's the benefit of having both?
The benefit is that if you don't have Nevi'im, then you still have a Sanhedrin. Yeah, I mean, like I don't know if it's necessary to say that they're both necessary.
Okay.
But and you do have these redundancies from time to time. Like Urim v'tumim tell you certain types of information, but you could ask a Navi, like, why need the Urim v'tumim, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we finished the Yesodei Torah?
Yeah.
Completely forever? Okay. Navi, so this is the case we talked around yesterday, but didn't actually read. Halacha hey. Navi sheheid lo Navi acher shehu Navi. One Navi who testifies about another person that he's a Navi. Harizeh, the second guy, b'chezkas Navi, is in the presumed status of being a Navi. Ve'ein zeh hasheni tzarech hakira. And the second person does not need to be tested.
That's also not something about the future.
He will be a Navi. You're right, yeah. That ends up being like a sticky problem, right? Like, yeah. He said earlier yesterday, he said that like all the news about the future, like there's a ton that are not, you know, like where's my lost object? That's about the present, you know. So we twisted it in all these amusing ways, like, oh, your lost object will be found. Yeah. Shahari Moshe Rabbeinu Hey Yoshua. Oh, whoops, there goes my whole theory. Okay, fine. So it simplifies things. Because I was saying that Moshe saying Yehoshua is a Navi is not an implementation of this halacha. It's something different.
Was he also a Navi then, or was he only come afterwards?
Before Moshe said that, or
Before Moshe said that, because Moshe thought was like implying that it was going to be.
oh, well, so that's our question. I think the same shot is that that Navi can say stuff about the present, and it's really more a question on the Rambam about like why he emphasizes the future, because it's really hard to say it the other way. You have to be like really twisty, you know?
Yeah, I think maybe he was talking more about how he has divine knowledge as opposed to doing divine acts. I mean, he's not like
Right.
It's the important part of the Navi is that he's saying information that he's gotten through Nebuah, as opposed to changing the laws of nature. Like that's not that's the essential aspect of the Navi.
So you're saying that fits into the future thing? How?
I mean, I think maybe he's emphasizing knowledge of the future as like not like knowledge that can only be like done through
But
Hashem.
why doesn't he just say knowledge? Why does he have to specify?
Because it's
Like, wouldn't he still be able to?
because it's knowledge that you can't that is like impossible to know.
So why didn't he say knowledge that's impossible to know? Why?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just trying. I'm trying to like mitigate the question.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to answer the question.
Right. Okay. I appreciate what you're trying to do. Yeah.
I'm saying his point was that is that the essential aspect of the Navi is not doing miracles.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Good.
Like even in the case of like when someone says, "Where's my lost object?"
Yeah.
Like he can just make the lost object appear. He can just tell
Right.
the person for the lost object, and then they have to go get it.
Right. Yeah. That's a good example. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Moshe testified about Yoshua, "V'heminu bo kol Yisrael kodem shiate ots," and all of Israel believed in him before he did a sign. And he's saying before he did a sign because Yoshua did end up doing a sign, but that's not why they believed him. Same thing for the generations.
Wait, so why did he have to do those?
I don't think he had to do an os
It was
for
for-
Nebuah, but it was to flip the
You're-
yard.
Did
Yeah.
a miracle. Well, isn't there like a miracle functional purpose?
He calls them osos still, doesn't he? The Rambam? We saw that in the earlier ones.
Okay.
All the osos the Moshe did in the midbar.
Right. So I guess. Oh, so when he says oath here, he's not referring to like oath to be proved.
I don't think
Yeah,
so.
I think that distinction was specifically that he was saying that Moshe Rabbeinu was not validating himself.
Validating himself or validating?
Right.
Oh, yeah, within himself. In
Yeah, he
the
wasn't.
earlier
He
prayer.
wasn't doing miracles to validate himself. He was doing miracles for the purpose, but it's not like there's like two categories of things. So, like,
Okay.
Also, did we? I remember the question that we had yesterday, where like when Moshe's vouching for Yoshua, now like Yoshua is like at the same level as Moshe.
Yeah, so that is disproven by the Rambam now.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Because he's saying that this example of a Navi testifying to another
Right,
Navi,
applies.
for example, what Moshe did, you know,
Right.
so that cuts out my trivia question.
Uh-huh.
well, you could say that they're being given the same authority.
That's true.
No,
Yeah, Navi's Micha, yeah. But aren't the other Navim being given the same authority? Because if I'm a Navi and I testify that you're a Navi, the only reason why we believe you is because of Moshe's authority.
Yeah, well, the only reason we like why would believe me is because we believe you, and then that's because of Moshe's authority. I'm saying it's not that.
But isn't the nature of the reliance on me, having me done my osos, and the nature of the reliance on you relying on the halacha, isn't that of the same authority?
Oh yeah, they are
Yeah,
the same.
right.
Yeah,
It's just different halachos.
yeah, but I'm saying, the thing that the difference by Yeshua was that I think is that Yeshua, there's not the doubt of whether the original person was actually a Navi. Like, let's say you, but
Right.
you're proved to be a Navi sheker,
Right.
then that there was my authority.
That's true. Right. Yeah, you can't do that with Moshe.
Yeah.
That's true. So the most, what's the new trivia question? The most certain Navi other than Moshe
Is Yoshua.
is Yoshua.
And presumably it wouldn't, again, like that couldn't, Yoshua couldn't pass that to the next guy.
He could, but it'd be passing it of the same quality
Yeah, it'd be the same as any other Nubby.
as any other Navi. Yeah.
We couldn't pass.
Well, no, I think it'd be the same because you know for a fact that
Yeah.
they-
Oh, so just like Smicha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So
Yeah.
where do we lose that?
I mean, literally, this is Smicha, by the way. I mean, the puzzle, right? He saw Moshe as Yadam. You know, it's just not limited to the Smicha that we're used to.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the thing is, you need to have an unbroken chain of Naviim, which is not.
Yeah. Yeah, I honestly don't know how often this was done in history.
Yeah.
Do you know any other case other than? I mean, I know Eliyahu gives some of his nevuah to Elisha, but I don't know if that was like in place of. I don't know if that's what made him a Navi. Like you know.
I think it's already a Navi.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
It's literally like just groups of Nubbies walking around.
Yeah. Right.
And it's also
Let's
not,
merge.
it's not
Yeah.
the same as this because Moshe Rabbeinu is the only one that we know for
Oh,
sure.
it's alien
Yeah.
Navi?
Eli was an.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of compared to Shmuel. He kind of like brings it ahead of time, no?
I don't know that. I gotta just hang a PSA. Saber Shmuel is my gap in knowledge. This is coming like every year. I really got to remedy this. Anyone want to learn Shmuel over the summer? No. yeah, but I really don't know. Okay, next. Oh, now we get to the question that you were asking 2 days ago, which is how many times are you supposed to test him?
Right.
Okay, so he says, the last halacha. Navi shenoda nevuaso. Navi whose nevuah was made known, the ha'omnu devarav pam achar pam, and his words have been verified time after time. Meaning, so this is now we're going back to in the testing process,
Right.
or after he's been verified. It could be either one. But o tehei lo Navi, or Navi testifies about him. And he's following the nevuah paths, meaning he has all the checklists. It is prohibited to be suspicious of him, to be critical of him, of his nevuah, that maybe it's not true. And it is uttered to test him more than enough. A person should not continue just testing forever. Shneimar, as it says, and then the pasuk is a very weird one. Do not test Hashem your God as you tested him in Masa, which is framing in terms of testing Hashem, right? Even though practically speaking, you're testing the Navi. They said, is God in our midst or not? Rather, once it is known that this guy is a Navi, then they should believe and know that God is in their midst. They should not be critical of him or speculate after him. And they knew that there was a Navi in their midst.
Yeah, two questions. First off, on the halacha before, do we know if Yoshua gave his nevuah to anybody else, or we don't know about that?
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, because if he did, then the answer to the trivia question would be Yoshua plus.
Right. Yeah. The chain. Yeah.
And then also for this, you're saying you shouldn't have any doubt in him once he is like a verified Navi.
Right.
So if he gives a nevuah and then ends up not coming through, then like there isn't like you like test him again. Then it's just like.
Well, then he's Navi Sheker.
Then he just a Navi Sheker.
Yeah, straight Navi Sheker.
Right,
so at no point were you in doubt.
Right.
Right. You were certain.
Right. You're certain.
And then if he does something,
false.
yeah, then you're certain he's false.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's no in between.
Yeah. And not only are you certain he's false, but you also now know that he was false from the get-go. That's what the Rambam said earlier.
Right. And
that he did the trick. He did the oath through some sort of trickery.
Right.
Yeah. But now, what's the answer to Avi's question though? Because the Rambam doesn't spell it out. What's the shiur in doing it more than enough? Like how much testing is too much?
Yes, one.
What was that?
After a good one.
Oh man, that was good. You're in. Yeah.
After a good, like a prophecy for good. Like
But you do have to do that multiple times though.
How much? Why?
He said it earlier, right?
Yeah.
not
Yeah. So this when you're establishing the Navi, I should read that one little part there. Yeah. So the way he said it is in Aleph Gimel 3 is the Imbao Devar Kulan. So if he says stuff that's going to happen, and if all of them come true, yiv einenu ne'eman, so he's trustworthy. And he says ubokin oso pa'amim harbe, you test him many times.
That sounds the outfit.
Yeah, well, many, not more than enough, right? Not too much. Im nimsu devarav kula ne'eman harzeh navi emes. So there's 3 stages. There's walking in the path of nevuah, which is like, he's a candidate. Then you test him once, then he's reliable, but he's not a Navi emes yet. And then if you test him many times and all of them come true, then he becomes a Navi emes, and then this iter kicks in. There's other to test him more than enough.
You don't have any cases like in the VM that's like emergency situations. Because like from the VM and like the Tanakh, it sounds like these are like emergency situations.
Yeah, right. Quick, next 10 lottery winners now. Yeah. Yeah.
We don't have cases in the VM that lose their
We don't have cases like where these things are dealt with, like
don't we have the case?
we have a couple. But I'm saying like
where they do lose their nevuah at a certain point.
oh yeah, we definitely have cases of that. But
Yeah.
that's not necessarily losing their nevuah. That's just like not getting any more nevuahs. Like Ram said in the beginning, like you could be a Navi who only gets 1 nevuah in your life, or like Yonah got 2.
I wouldn't consider that, right? Because there's an idea like at a certain point, like not necessarily lost touch, but like he started seeing things kind of work.
Right, but even at that point though,
Yeah.
I don't know what the categories of that, because that's also like, I mean, like the brachos and stuff that he gave you, that was at the end of his life, but he was still able to give prophetic brachos according to many, at least, or all. Yeah. Yeah, see, this is the problem. Okay, there's several problems with nevuah. So problem number 1 is anyone who explains it, who's authoritative, is going to be relying on Aristotelian premises. So like, we don't know what is known and what is not, what is true and what is false. The second case is if you read the Rambam's principles of nevuah, and let's say the only data you had on Nevi'im was from Tanakh, you get a very different impression of like who is a Navi, how you get nevuah, how you tell that's a Navi. So a real full study would also involve going through all the cases of Tanakh where you get glimpses into how the principles of nevuah work. At the very least, looking up all the Rambam's cases and then learning those in context. But like, I don't know, it's such a daunting subject. Like I'm starting to realize what the Rambam said in the Ikarim that we read, that like, in order to know this, you need to know all branches of knowledge, Yeah.
It doesn't seem like they were so concerned about it.
No, it seems like it was puttered. Yeah, right.
It's like, it's like these guys are nothing. They're like in a school. It's like you run.
Exactly. Yeah, but that's the crazy thing is that in practice it is very simple. Like the only thing we really need to do is know that they meet the criteria, which are pretty understandable, and then be tested. Like in other words, in order to engage in the institution of Nevi'im, we don't need to know the metaphysics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
That's machlokas. So apparently it's not so clear. It's machlokas whether it's in Navi.
Like the modern relies on like shiur and being entirely.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty awkward if he wasn't a Navi.
It would be. Yeah. I mean, Malton's is a high stakes gambler. He'll take. Oh, by the way, this side point. Remember the point I made earlier about Greek sieves and Abravanel's theory that like Yirmiyahu didn't know how to spell. So guess who takes him to task for that?
the
Malbim. And guess why? Because Malbim would never say that someone can make a spelling mistake. I haven't read the Malbim, but I heard about it this morning. Someone told me about it. And I was like, that's got to have given the Malbim like a heart attack, But yeah. But anyway. Yeah, so how do you know if you're testing the Nubby too much? I have an answer that I haven't read anymore, but I think it's a good answer though.
I guess I'd say the point where it's beyond any reasonable degree of depth.
Okay, that's a good descriptive criterion, which I think is that you're going to get. But I have an example. Yeah.
Wait, just a question on that.
Yeah.
Then it's no longer a legal thing of like whether you believe him or not, but it's like whether you like each other.
You mean like whose certainty do we rely on for this Isser kicking? Like, is it subjective to each person?
I guess it's down to
Who decides?
Who decides? Yeah, right. That's a good question.
Unless unless you say like five good things is like a
Right, but it sounds like the Rambam would specify that.
Right.
He wouldn't just say harbe.
Yeah,
And
it also depends on the degree of specific, like detail of each individual. Like let's say,
Right.
let's
So
say,
it's negative.
let's say he called 5 coin flips in a row. That's not that's not that big of a deal. If he calls like 5,000 coin flips in a row, then like that's much more like certainty.
right. I was going to say though that certainly the first part of this Isser is relative or subjective. right? That like, actually that's not necessarily true, never mind, because we're talking about a Navi that's been established. Yeah.
And then also like, you know, you were saying like you could have a Navi who gets 1 nebuah, 2 nebuahs, 5 nebuahs.
Yeah.
So like, how do we, in that case, like, how do you know if he's a real Navi?
Well, you at that point he already has had this
Oh, all the
test.
tests.
Yeah, that's not including his nebuahs, because all the nebuahs that he gets to establish himself are given to him in order to establish himself. And then let's say after that, then he gets he might have his
A real.
mission, his one nebuah mission, then it's done. Yeah, Josh.
I just had perhaps an example that relates to the end of the Rambam.
Yeah.
That Yosef was given or was, interpreted the dreams of the Sarmash and Zarephath,
Yeah.
and then also interpreted the dream of Paro. And it appears as though in the Rambam is at the end, the Yadu ki Navi hayim.
Yeah.
It seems like it's more somewhat of like a communal phenomenon that even, let's say, when you interpret Paro's dream and they act,
Mhm.
the entire nation of Mitzrayim acts upon the validity of his nebuah.
Right. The only problem with that is that I don't know if it's an intrinsic problem, but like, let's say when everyone thinks that Yirmiyahu was a false Navi, and there's no communal, agreement, like it's, and like,
It seems like around working with halachically following people, though. I don't think they were exactly the most like.
No, they weren't.
Citizens.
Right, that's true. That's why the easiest explanation for me is to say.
Stuff is not great though, because like that doesn't bode well for all the Nubby.
No, I know. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know, Nubby works.
Yeah, that's the only case. Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of
And-
sad, that's the only
Right,
case.
and that Navi had other problems, it sounds like this might go on a case by case basis, meaning once you are, you have that it wouldn't work because then God wouldn't keep giving him oto. So
It seems like it's a subjective thing. Like, yeah, the temple gift actually is like what they give in Torah is Masa, which would be before 69. Like that's like entirely.
right,
Not just gonna say, oh, everyone
Right,
knows this is true.
yeah.
But like,
Oh, that's true. The good point. This is before Sinai. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like this is more like, okay, we've seen the Yom Tov. Like the Yom Tov is like, okay, that.
Yeah,
that's like,
right. But I mean, Hashem with Moshe Avdo, like
Yeah.
that's pretty good,
Yeah.
You don't get that same by everyone.
Right.
Yeah. Here's my analogy though for Isaac's thing. Is how many times do you have to do an experiment in science and repeat it before you're convinced that your results are correct?
What's the 0.5?
So like, it's enough to like rule out like confounding variables and stuff like that. But if you had a scientist who did an experiment and like who did several experiments, on a certain phenomenon, ruled out confounding variables, and said, I still don't believe it, I'm just gonna keep doing it again and again and again and again, we would say that that's anti-scientific. We would say that you're looking for some level of certainty beyond what rationality warrants, and I feel like there is a similar, quantity here. It's not going to be uniform necessarily. Like I personally wouldn't find the coin flips as convincing simply because they're trick coins, but if stock market predictions or exact weather temperature thing is, like that's going to be more convincing, so yeah.
It is kind of a subjective thing.
Yes, but in practice, that's the only thing I don't know. Meaning, when is God going to stop giving him, like, let's say everyone in Klal Yisrael accepts that this guy's a Navi except one person. Is God going to keep giving the Navi signs for the sake of that one guy? Like,
Maybe.
yeah, it's right. Yeah, it might matter who the guy is. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I think there's just there is a reasonable standard, and if like one guy or many people are not conforming to that, or like one a higher standard
Yeah.
than the actual standard, like God's not gonna.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we see that God presumably is not going to give in to if you're violating this Isser. Although he did there in Masa, right?
Yeah, but Yirmiyahu didn't.
Yirmiyahu didn't. Yeah.
So it seems
I mean, Moshe Rabbeinu was also a little bit more important. No offense, Yirmiyahu, but
I mean, often Masa, like that was like kind of like a situation where it's like, yeah, no, like if we don't keep going,
Yeah.
that'd be bad.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Worst case, Korban would.
Right. It's not the worst case, It's, yeah.
Like, at least like maybe there's some kind of continuation.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Right. So before we go into this, do we say Tarikh Rahmana Desayan? Right, that's what you're supposed to say. That's what he has there. Did he have that at the end of the Hakdama? I can't remember. I don't think so either. Well, let's just look at this little footnote guy on the right. Baruch Rahman Desayan, Baruch Harachman Hashem. In case you're wondering, Shesiyanu, blessed is the merciful one who helped us. Siyumet shel hoda b'sof kol chativat halachot. Yeah, that's the conclusion at the end of each of the halacha sections. So I guess he didn't have this before. Yeah. Okay, so we want to move on to the Pirush Mishnayos and then do that today and tomorrow. Okay, so I'm not claiming that this is Nevuah, but, and I'm being serious about this. I was like, I'm going to bring, I was like, I don't need to print anything because there are exactly 4 copies in yeshiva. And there were 4 people, there were 3 people who usually come, and I was expecting maybe, oh no, it's 4 people who usually come, right? And I was like, what if some random person comes? So I printed 1 copy. So we have enough copies now. Yeah. Yeah. So someone has to use the Arabic one though. Well, it has the Hebrew in it also, but
Also
okay, so here's non-Arabic. Here is paper. Whoever wants to use the paper one. Pass that down to whoever wants to use that one. Pass that down to whoever wants to use that one. And then this is the one with the Arabic in it. Where is it? Here. Hold on. Yeah, Dalid here. Yeah, and let me just go here. So let's just clarify why we're doing this, because this is the first place the Rambam talked about Nevuah in a halakhic context. He's not talking about the mechanisms of Nevuah, but he talks about Nevuah here. And I'm interested in 2 things. One is new point he mentioned here that he didn't mention in the Mishnah Torah or in Chelek. Okay. Second point is the differences in his treatment of the subject here versus his treatment there. Meaning, like, you'll see, for example, like he brings in prophesying in the name of Avodah Zarah, and like he categorizes stuff differently, so like little things like that. Okay, let's go and see what happens. All right, so I think it starts with Vida. Yeah, Vida. Okay, what we missed before? I think we actually read everything before this at the beginning of the year. It was the what Torah Ped, and then the Seder of giving Torah Ped to Aaron, and then to Aaron and the sons, and then passing it to the people, and the people writing it down. Yeah, so now we're at Vida. Okay, bottom right. Got it? Shehanevua lo to'il iyun b'pirushei haTorah u'lemidas hadinim b'yogim Nevuah does not help, will not benefit in the analysis of the explanations of the Torah. By that I assume it means Torah Peh, and in the learning out of laws through the Yogim Midas. Ella mashiase Yehoshua Pinchas be'inyane ha'iyun v'hadin hu mashiase Ravina v'Ravashi. Whatever Yehoshua and Pinchas, who were Nevi'im, did in matters of iyun and law, that's exactly the same as Ravina and Ravashi. Okay, so they're just functioning as chachamim. Aval l'she'elas mahu yisron hanavi u'pu'ulaso b'mitzvos. However, regarding the question of what is the advantage of a Navi and his activity in mitzvos, hariz hu kainachi min hayisodos hagdolim ha'atzumim she'aleim mishan hadas b'yisodo. That is, by my life, one of the great foundations and strong foundations upon which the religion and its foundation rest. Now that's already weird. Really, like a Navi's role in halacha is one of the super, super duper foundations of the religion functioning. Would you say that based on what we've done so far? Because I wouldn't.
Yeah, no, because I mean, if you could have, you do have to recognize
the
place in terms of
okay,
being the boss of things.
Right. Meaning. Okay, no. Okay, I thought that was different. Okay, no. Meaning like this. I'll tell you what I think he means. You can still disagree. No, but meaning it's not the fact that he's being mevatel thing. Well, maybe this is what you meant. Is if you had a chain of command of Nevi'im able to add to Torah and modify Torah, that would be a completely different religious circumstance, right? Or if we didn't, if the authority of a Navi saying something was somehow on par with Moshe, or if the Navi was Rasha l'chadish davar, then it would be a very different religion. Yeah, is that what you meant?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, same page. Yeah.
As opposed to.
I thought he meant in terms of like a Navi being able to temporarily be mevatel or something.
Oh, no.
That's because that was where my question was coming from. Yeah, that's not very. I mean, it's important practically, but it's not a foundation of the religion that's strong that Rambam has to swear on his life. Which is interesting also because side point. Okay, veneerly.
Leave us.
Side point is I happen to look at whether the Bahag holds the that the it's a mitzvah to listen to a Navi, and I believe he doesn't. I
You-
believe he
you
doesn't.
asked.
Yeah, I didn't want to mention.
Nice.
Yeah, I've also been doing some digging around about getting more information about the Bahag, but haven't presented anything yet. Okay, veneerly shakan roylo levair as yisod. Seems to me that it is proper to explain this yisod. But first we have to make a division of the Navim who claim Nevuah. Now that's an important thing. People who claim Nevuah. And Nevuah is verified. Wow, okay. This is something that the masses have erred in, and even some of the, the chosen ones, meaning, I don't know who he's referring to there. I don't like, are you aware of any machloksim on like how to establish whether someone's a Navi?
I think maybe there's been people who are maybe
Historically, like in Tanakh, maybe?
Or just
Well, he's saying,
yeah.
I mean, Bechirim of the Amei Haaretz?
yeah, like not.
No, I don't think so. Hamoni Ha'am Bechirei Ha'am. Like, it means like the top, to be top guys.
Maybe some of the Chachamim have been led astray by people claiming Nebuah.
That's one possibility, yeah. Another one is
I mean, kings maybe, because the fear, like what's called, that seems more like.
societal
Yeah,
level.
It would have been, if we're going to someone that's like what you just said. Like,
Yeah, that's
like
true.
Rabbanim or something like that, or-
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and definitely there have been, kings who've been misled by false prophets. But the other possibility is, I do think that there are people who hold that anyone can get nevuah, and maybe that's what he's going to be disputing. Not the whole thing about the os and the mo. The os and the movies is like halachos, So I'd be surprised if anyone disputes that. But like, who needs to be Navi? Or let's say like even the basic machlok is about like, Navi needs to be a gadol, ashir, and a chacham. Like, does that mean he actually needs to be wealthy, or does it mean he needs to like have certain midos or whatever? I don't know. All right, we'll see if he says. I don't think he says. I read it this morning. V'hu shehem choshim shlotis ames nevuas hamiznavi ela ad shiyase os. Okay, so I guess there are people who actually think that his prophecy will not be verified until he does a miracle like the miracles that Moshe Rabbeinu did and changes nature definitively. I think it means definitively, not permanently, meaning like a clear violation of nature. Like Eliyahu resurrected the son of the widow. The midrash thing about who that son was? Yonah, yeah, it's interesting. Elisha, or like the well-known miracles of Elisha. Yeah, you all know that one. Yeah. I was trying to think he also did a Tzlias Mesim, right? Was it the bear?
The miracle, the bears in the forest.
Yes, that's a great one. Yeah,
It's really important.
Yeah. I feel like that's not one that violates the laws of nature. Like,
the forest being like spontaneously appearing in the middle of the desert.
It says that.
Well, no, it's like Mark.
Oh, okay, fine.
Mark says like, wait, but the bears, one, they don't live there. There's no bears in that area.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's like, they also say like, okay, but also bears when they're not in a natural environment don't feel well enough to kill them.
That is true.
So they're like, so what do you do? That's where the phrase in Hebrew. It's a phrase in Hebrew to say.
Yeah.
And you're being so it means.
That's funny. Okay, I didn't know that background there. Yeah, it's good. Okay, so that is.
They say it's a double miracle. Like he spontaneously created the forest.
Yeah. Wow.
In order to kill the children.
That's a great X-Men power. Forest spirit kill. Yeah. Okay. V'zeh yisod bilti nachon. That is not a good foundation. All these miracles that Eliyahu and Elisha did, and the other Nevi'im, they did not do to verify their Nevuah. Their Nevuah was already verified beforehand. They only did these miracles because they were necessary. Hold on, lost my place. Ritzonam Omer V'Yakam. Okay, so that's side yisod is that because of their closeness to Hashem, then he fulfilled their will, and that hatadikim, as it promised to the tzadikim, but tigzor omer v'yacham lach. You'll decree and then God will fulfill it. Yeah. Okay, fine. So that's no new points yet, right? Okay. Ulam tit amet hanevua b'mesh asdir b'divrei ele shehi schalti. So I'm gonna their prophecy is verified through what I will present to you in the words that I have started. The Omer, so many introductory phrases. I'll say tchila first. Shesodos Torah seinu b'neviim k'moshe asbir. Okay, it's as I will explain. Okay, we got it. Tonei hanevua nechlakim tchila l'shnei chalakim. Those who claim nevuah can be divided first into two categories. Misnave b'shem avodah zara, or misnave b'shem Hashem. Those who prophesy in the name of avodah zara, and those who prophesy in the name of Hashem. Yeah, so that's why I was emphasizing that those who claim nevuah. You know, yeah. So, gotta go.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for
See ya.
having me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Not you. Yeah. All right. So. So then that is going to be divided into two. People who prophesy in the name of avodah zarah. So the first group is that a Navi arises and says, Shekofa ploni hishra alai ruchniuso, and says that such and such a planet, imbued me with its spirit. Okay, presumably its spirit of prophecy. V'amar li, and said, Avduni ivduni bekach o darshini bekach. Serve me, or worship me in this way, or seek me out in this way. V'chein im kar la'avodas pesel o tzura min hatzuros v'amar shehu navi otso bekach nibe osi bekach. Or if he calls to an idol or a graven image and says that thing prophesied to me with such, v'hudieni bekach, and informed me about such, otzivani, or commanded me l'hazir al avodaso, to warn about its avoda, but open ploni in such and such a way, k'moshai otim nevi'eh habal and nevi'eh ha'ashera, like the nevi'eh baal and nevi'eh ashera do. So that's category one. You're claiming that the avodah zarah is communicating to you. Okay. The other one, you want to guess? You know what it is? The other type of avodah zarah, navi b'shem avodah zarah. It's a weird one.
It's Hashem. No, Hashem.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. Because the other one is you say that I got a vision from Hashem to worship such and such a thing. O lahori bruchnius plonis beopen ploni yomar open elfani ha'avoda v'hamasim she'osim anshe oso hasug k'pi ha'planim haydum b'toraseno. Or to bring down the spirituality of this thing in such and such a way, and to do some type of avoda and actions that the people in that category do based on their principles that are known in our Torah. Meaning he tells you a specific type of worship. That's also considered misnavi b'shem avodah zarah, even though you're claiming that it's in the name of Hashem.
Wait, you have a Torah, so you mean like that it's we know about their avodah zarah?
I think so. Let's see what the footnote says. 60. Nearly shakavana la'avdo derech avodaso be'achas me'arba avodas. Right, so either it's way of avodah zarah or the four avodas that are universal. Yeah. Part is ganze misam b'shem avodah zarah. Ulfi sheshem ze kolo ha'omer shehi ba'atma tzivta al avodasa o be'ezi davar shehiyeh. Because this name of misam b'shem avodah zarah includes one who says that it itself commanded on its avoda, or something like that it would be, or that God commanded to worship any created being. When we hear from someone who prophesies in one of these two ways, and you have testimony about this guy according to the law of Torah, his law is that he is executed by strangulation, like it says in the Torah. Okay. We do not care about his nevuah. We don't pay attention to his nevuah, and we don't ask a mofes from him, a proof. Even if we hear, I don't know why it says here, wonders that are that there's nothing more wondrous than them, in order to verify his prophecy, he is strangled. We don't care about those miracles. the cause is what it says in the pasuk. This is a weird one, that Hashem your God is testing you, right? Ki edus hasefel hamachafisha es nevuaso gedola mikoach edus ha'ayin haroa mosav. That's a beautiful point. The testimony of the intellect, which undermines his nevuah, is greater than the testimony of the eye that sees his miracles. Lefi shekvar nisbarer eitzel bali hasefel she'ein roy lechabed v'lo lavot zulas hayachid shehimtzi kol hametzius v'nividal b'tachlis hashleimus. Because it is clear to rational people that it is only fit to serve, to honor and to serve the one being who brought all existence into being and who is separated with the utmost perfection. So that's a different direction than I thought he was going to take it. I don't know if you thought otherwise. When he said that, so how is God testing? So cases like this, a Navi arises and prophesies in the name of Avodah Zarah to worship Avodah Zarah, right? And he's saying, the Rambam saying that's no matter how big his miracles are, God is testing you. And how is he testing you? Because the testimony of the intellect is greater than the testimony of your eyes at seeing this guy's wonders. I don't get phone calls. I get junk mail calls, but not usually during this time. Okay. Maybe it's the Bahag. Yeah. Yeah. So what how are we understanding this? What's the competing testimony here? It's an interesting point he's making.
Yeah.
See, such as what you think.
But it's not just what you see versus what you think. That's half of it.
Well, I guess you know that it's impossible for what he's doing to be true. So even though it really looks like it is, then you know it must not.
So why do you know that it's impossible for what he's doing to be true?
Yes.
Because that's, well, for whatever reason, whatever the argument is, there's some argument that you can only worship God. It doesn't make sense.
Right. So he's not putting this in terms of like, this guy is not, like, the problem with this guy is not that his claim to prophecy lacks authority. The problem with this guy is that the thing he's telling you to do is irrational.
And that's why it's halachically not, that's why he's halachically never sheker.
I don't know if the Rambam saying this as a halachic statement, but he's the point I'm trying to make is that the Rambam is not making a halachic argument. Like what I thought he was going to say, when he started going into testimony stuff is, from Torah and Sinai that Moshe Rabbeinu's nevuah is true, and that the only reason you believe in Navi is within these parameters, and this guy's violating those parameters.
Right.
So like it's a competition between trusting nevuahs Moshe based on the seichel, and then trusting this guy's impressive miracles. And he's not saying that. He's saying it's competition between, that God is the only existing being who is worthy of worship, and this guy's telling you to worship Avodah Zarah. Or telling you that God is telling you to worship Avodah Zarah.
Isn't that just stronger than what you said?
It is, yeah.
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 I guess it's still.
But it's funny because
Turns out the Rambam makes a better point than my Hagminus. Yeah.
But just flat out, any argument that he makes that is wrong, let's say he says, the sun, I got a nevuah that the sun is made of yeast or something.
So I don't think that this applies, because it could be that, it's a good question you're asking, but maybe the sun is made of cheese.
Maybe I should worship something else.
Right. That's why I'm saying this is a philosophical argument that apparently is unshakable. Yeah. And that's why I'm agreeing with you when you say for whatever reason, he's not filling out what that argument is.
Mm-hmm.
We used to think that the moon was made of a fifth element. It's made of rock.
Right.
Rocks are almost as crazy as cheese, back then, right? The thought that the unchanging heavenly bodies, and we thought it had intelligence. So disappointed.
True.
Yeah.
By the way, I think the Rambam would say, or maybe the Rambam, that's the for kid footage. Well, that's a big deal. That's the fear of the acronyms.
Wow, that's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I've never thought about it in that direction. That's interesting. Okay,
yeah.
I hear that. I'll think into that. All right, let's do the next classification here. wait 5 minutes. Gam misabe b'shem Hashem nechlak l'shnei chalakim. Also, those who prophesy in the name of Hashem are in 2 categories. Hafil Rishon shenitznabe b'shem Hashem v'yikra v'yatir al avodaso v'yomer shel Hashem hosif al hamitzvos mitzvah ogara mehem mitzvah mikol hamitzvos shekola osam sefer haTorah. So, person prophesies in the name of Hashem and he calls people and warns about his service and says that God added a mitzvah or took away a mitzvah from all the mitzvahs that are included in the Sefer Torah. Doesn't matter whether he's adding to the psukim or adding to the received explanation. Each example, right? He says, if he adds to the psukim where he says that God told me that Orla is only for 2 years, not for 3. And after 2 years, it's mutter to eat from the growth. Or he says that it's only after 4 years when God actually said 3.
What's Orla again?
Orla is the first 3 years of a tree's growth, and you can't eat from the produce. Yeah. Strange example. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, it's not an example of adding on or taking away from a mitzvah. Like not adding on a new mitzvah or taking away.
I mean, that's why he said it.
Right, it's modifying it. Yeah.
Adding
Right.
to mitzvah.
So it's like
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it doesn't sound like what he said before.
So is it like Homer like adding a whole new mitzvah? I assume.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah, he's using a lesser case, I guess. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I guess it also is a useful example because it's directly like editing the mikra. Says 3, and he's claiming it's 2 or 4.
Right, and didn't you just say that it doesn't matter if he's adding?
Right, but now he's giving examples of that though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he's saying, for example, for the mikra, this one, and then he's going to say, oh, sheyashana the Kabbalah, or he changes the received interpretation, and he change it all. Even though the pshat of the ketuvim supports him.
Oh, like if he said
That Mordechai was. Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, Shmuz is on Mimachras.
Yeah, no, that's just promise.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that'd be an example.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Kagon Shiomar Shamash Nemar Bator the Katos es Kapa Losakos Enacha. Like when it says you should cut off her hand and not have mercy on her. So really we hold if he says it's cutting off literally of her hand, the eno knas, and it's not rather than a knas of one who causes busha. Kamosha biar Kabbalah, like the Torah says. Or like the Torah 12 says.
Right.
I know fine, right? Yeah. The Yachas Dabarzel in Nevuah, and here's the key point, and he ascribes this matter to his Nevuah. The Yomar, and he says, Shadashem Amarli, Shazesh Nemar Vakatos as Kapa, Hukshuto. That when the pasuk says cut off her hand, that's literal. Gamze Yumas Bechemek. That guy also dies by strangulation. The Fishahu Navi Sheker, because he's a false prophet. V'yichat Lashem Mashalo Amarlo, and he ascribed to Hashem what Hashem didn't say to him. V'gamze Ein Lachush La'oso Moves. Also here we don't care about a sign or a wonder. The Fisha Navi Shehifli as Kol Bai Ha'olam B'Motzav V'Natzan Hashem B'Libeno Amituso V'Ha'emuna Bo Kamoti Yivtiach Lo Hashem B'Kach V'Amro V'Gam B'Cha Yaminu La'olam Kvar Hodi'ano Al Pi Hashem Shlo Tavo Me'es Hashem Shum Torah Zulazo. Because this person. This Navi, whom Hashem has astounded the entire world with his wonders, and Hashem instilled in our hearts the truth and the reliability of him, as Hashem promised to do when he said, and also in you they will believe forever. Hashem has already made known that there will, through him, that there will not be another Torah from Hashem other than this one. And in it, Torah, he says it's not in heaven. Lemor, saying, Mi alelanu hashemaim v'chulei, who will go up to heaven to get it for us, meaning that Nevuah can't change Torah. V'lo me'ever liyam, and it's not across the sea. Ki karav elacha hadavar me'od beficha uvil vavacha. The matter is very close to you in your mouth and in your heart. Uv'amro beficha uvil vavacha, and when he says in your mouth and in your heart, Ratzlam hamikros hasiduros b'peh, ohadim hamilmadim b'derech iyun shu nichlal hakohos hanimshachim min alev. That's an interesting shot. I've never seen this. He means in the psukim that are arranged in your mouth. Or right? Or the laws that are learned out by way of analysis, which are of the powers of the heart. So it's close in your mouth, meaning the psukim, and it's close to your heart, mind, right? Meaning the knowledge of Torah peh. And we are warned to not add to them and not to subtract from them. But Omro, by saying lo tosif alav, tosif alav lo tikra mimenu, don't add to it, don't subtract from it. Lefikach amru alehem mashalom, ein navi rasha lachadish davar me'ata. That's why Chazal said no navi is permitted to innovate anything from now on, from Moshe on. Once we know that this guy spoke illicitly about Hashem, spoke wrong about Hashem, v'yichas lo mash lo amar, and he ascribed to him what he didn't say to him, nischayev mita, then he's liable for death. Funny, he doesn't say chenek here, right? But it is chayev chenek. Kamamar hakatov, acha navi asher yazi l'daber daber bishmi v'chule umeis hanaviyahu. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Already said in the pasuk, the Navi who is brazen enough to speak something that in my name that I didn't say, that Navi will die. So those are the three examples of false Nevi'im, and I guess we'll save the fourth one, which is the true one, for tomorrow. And guess what? Tomorrow is our 100th Rambam Yom, not Rambam Yomi, our 100th Rambam Bekius session.
Wow.
Yeah, they really add up.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Nice way to end.
Yeah, right.